Freedom of speech is not freedom to propagate hatred. Great words from a great man. A man who lived through the Holocaust, suffering the loss of 89 family members. A man who truly saw the consequences of hatred upon society and dedicated the rest of his life to fighting for justice. Simon Wiesenthal. I find this quote to convey the exact sentiment I've been trying to express for years. The sentiment that freedom of speech is intended to allow you to be yourself, to express yourself as who you are. Not to allow you to be unkind or even violent towards other people for being themselves. But despite this intended meaning of freedom of speech, you will find that any time you call someone out for their closed-minded comments, they will insist that they are simply using their freedom of speech. The freedom intended to allow people to be themselves has turned into a shield for people spewing hatred to hide behind. Perhaps these hateful people would also be inclined to say that their unkind thoughts about a specific group of people are simply opinions. To that sentiment, I would like to point out that opinions should be harmless, small thoughts and preferences about things like foods and colors. Opinions should not have death counts. And sure, perhaps you didn't ever physically harm someone, but your comment, your so-called opinion, encourages someone else with the same opinion to physically harm someone, or your opinion encourages someone to harm themselves. Yes, it is possible for all types of people to experience violence at some point in their lives. However, statistically, minorities are far more likely to experience violence or to commit suicide, likely largely due to all the hatred and discrimination many of them face. For example, the suicide rate of Indigenous people in Canada is 2 times the national average. For Indigenous women, 3 times. Indigenous youth, 5 to 7 times. Here in Canada, a place we like to think of as inclusive, there is still a lot of hatred. And yes, it could be argued that there's less hatred here than in some parts of the world. However, to say that Canada is not also hateful is to ignore the obvious and accomplishes nothing. We need to acknowledge the hatred lurking in our beloved country and weed it out, not pretend it isn't growing here. We need to properly educate the people on all the history, especially the negative things our country has done, so we can ensure they do not happen again in the future. Ignoring the horrible things that have happened in the past simply sets us on a path to do them again. So talk about injustice, past or present. Refuse to let people slip by, continuing to spread hatred simply because it is not hatred towards you that they are spreading. If you have the privilege not to be a target of hate, then use it to help those that are. Speak for those that society has deemed should not have a voice. Thank you.